Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Cleaning Lady. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So obviously in the aftermath of Maya's death, you have Garrett being basically on a warpath. He wants to take down Camdar just because it's like, Robert's the one responsible for killing Maya and had to be him, and he wants to not, because what are we going to do, take him down for white collar crimes? It's like, no, obviously it's like someone like him is too insulated from something like that. He gets someone else to pull the trigger, which Armand didn't have the gun when he left, and that's still something I talked about last episode. Robert's always going to have that over Armand, whether it's, hey, I have the gun that has your fingerprints on it, that's my insurance policy. Plus, if I get popped, I could always be like, yeah, but Armand's actually the one that pulled the trigger. I was a witness to it. So he will always have leverage to use against, if I go down, I can always, play that as a leverage to either have an immunity deal or at the very least reduce my sentence and just be like, hey, Armand's the one that actually pulled the trigger. I can definitely see that happening before the end of this season, or maybe even that's how the season ends off. But because obviously the big question that Garrett's asking in this episode is the same question got presented last episode. How did he find Maya? She was in an FBI safe house. There's no way he would have been able to find her. And Garrett asked the question of, could there be an insider? He's like, there's only two other people who knew, his boss and Agent Jefferson, and he's like, or could it be what other agents knew about it? But his boss is like, do not go down that route. So, jumping ahead a little bit at the end, he finds a tracking device in one of Maya's things, and it's like, all right, Cortez was the obsessive, possessive guy that he was tracking her. Now, that answers it, but to me, it still made me go, I don't know, man. It feels a little too suspicious, because I'm like, I feel like that's just too easy an answer, but I mean, maybe that's all there is to it, because just for me, it's just like, how would he know to track her, Because that to me is the biggest question, how would Robert know about being able to track Maya? Because I don't know how many of Cortez's, at least on screen, the only one of Cortez's people Robert interacted with was Cortez's right-hand guy. He's the one that threw it out there last episode, the only suspicious people are Maya or Armand and Tony. So he wouldn't have, and he immediately killed that guy. Last episode or something like that. So it's like, there's no way he would have had time to tell Robert about because he threw Maya's name out there as suspicion. Yeah, but it's like, he wouldn't know how to track her. So, but then, and I think I brought this up last episode, and also if it was an FBI insider, why wouldn't they tell him about Tony and Armand if that was the case? Like I said, unless it was an FBI agent that had no idea about Tony and Armand, that's the only other explanation. Because my suspicions were not unless it's Garrett's boss, but I'm like, no, I don't see that being the case. Once again, just because of the Tony and Armand of it all. Not unless that's some large play by Robert. I know you guys are the insiders. I'm just keeping you here so I can thread the FBI long enough that, hey, you're so busy, my favorite term, the Kansas City Shuffle. You're so busy looking over here seeing what the left hand's doing, you're completely missing what the right hand's doing. That's the only other explanation. Once again, the show gave an explanation because it was more so to alleviate Garrett's guilt, because it's because he blamed himself. He did everything by the book, yet Peter still, I'm doing it again. Jesus Christ. Robert, I don't know why when I think of this character, I want to say Peter. I don't know why. Robert. Out of any name, I don't know why that's the one that keeps repeatedly coming out my mouth. I don't know where that's coming from. There's another character named Peter and something else, but it's still I don't know why my brain's correlating that. I have no idea why I keep doing that. Robert. I guess because I don't say the name Robert enough, and it doesn't flow off like it should. So I guess in my head I just want to use a very generic name like Peter or something. I don't know. Robert I guess is kind of generic enough, I guess. Whatever the case may be, I don't know what the hell is my what wires are getting crossed in my brain. But like I said, I just don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna keep that part of my brain, like, there's always gonna be a little bit of suspicious spot in the back of my brain being like, I don't think we're done with that, but the show gave an explanation and that's all we need. It feels a little like, well, we want to make sure you found it, but it couldn't be too obvious, because if it's too obvious, it makes you go, huh. But since you had to kind of stumble across it, since you had to find it, it makes you go like, okay, this is more legit. So that's why I'm just like, it feels like that was just it's too clean. But maybe that's just for the purpose of, like I said, just alleviate Garrett's guilt because he blamed himself. But it still won't change the fact is he's going to be after the person who actually pulled the trigger, which is Armand, which obviously it puts him and Tony in this very complicated spot. I mean, obviously, Tony had to send Fiona away. And obviously, Fiona told Chris a little bit she knew about, like, right, Tony's helping Garrett with an FBI operation. We want to make sure everyone's okay. So I need you to keep Jazz and Luca kind of in the dark, and they'll go off and have, like, keep them calm. So, and I do like that Chris does that. He has, because it is he's, as kind of like that big brother role, not just for, Jazz being his actual sister, but also to Luca. It's like, right, I'm going to do what my mom asked me to do, and this the least I can do, with everything that's kind of been going on lately. He wants to make everything a little bit smoother and okay for everybody. It probably feels like he owes it to Tony too. So, both of them are in this very complicated spot because obviously Tony wants to get back to her family, but she's also having to lie to Garrett, especially considering how much she knows Maya meant to Garrett too. So you have that, but it's also about, you got to protect Armand because it's like, because neither one of them can stop thinking about what had to be done last episode. I mean, she's wondering, like, could they have found another way around? There was no other way around. Because even if they shot Robert in that moment, once again, the rest of his people would have killed him or something, So there wouldn't have been no getting out of that situation. It was either do it or you get popped yourselves. So there was that. So they were going to, like, try and get Robert to confess for what he's done so they could get him on what they could get him on. But and they were going, what are we going to do if he brings up the whole Maya thing? It's like, we keep it on the money because obviously the FBI's listening in and we don't want to incriminate her. Well, because it's only a matter of time. Armand's not going to be able to avoid this forever. Eventually, Garrett is going to find out. Like I said, either it's going to play out like I said, that Robert's going to get caught and he's going to sell out Armand, even probably still has the gun, once again, an insurance policy. But the person that was there was, instead of Robert, it was Nadia, which Armand, knowing the FBI's listening, didn't want to incriminate Nadia. So it's like, no, I need to handle this so that she doesn't get involved. And, he's still trying to protect her because, yes, he's complicated and it's love triangle, like, because Tony knows how she feels about Armand. Armand knows how he feels about Tony. And then, like, but he also does love Nadia, so it is a complicated love triangle. But I won't lie to you, too. This crossed my mind, and it kind of, it's me circling back to it. I'll finish up with this, but the whole conversation about the whole Maya thing. There was a part of me that was like, could it be Nadia? But I'm like, she wouldn't probably... I was like, she wouldn't even know about Maya, but she'd also be in a position not to know that Armand and Tony are working with the FBI, so it could easily be for her to, like, sell out Maya, not unless she found out about them and she's the reason why, like, she's trying to protect Armand and her. No, just the way she was acting this episode, she's not really in a mood to, like, necessarily protect him in this episode, so that's why I'm like, that was kind of running through my mind. She was kind of like an early, but I'm like, no, nothing in this episode makes it seem like that's the case. Not unless she is putting on the performance of her lifetime by pretending to Armand like she doesn't really already know. Like, but that was something I suspected pretty early on, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. Like I said, it was kind of running through my mind at the beginning of the episode, like, who could have sold out Maya? So, like I said, we got an answer to it for now, but I'm still not fully letting that go. Either way, because it is Nadia, and it's like, right, Armand doesn't want to put his wife in a situation where she can get caught up in all of this, so they need to get the ledger. So the only way to do that is to get the access key from the key card from Nadia. So he ends up trying to reconcile his differences with her. That was that. I mean, and what makes it even interesting is like it was actually Tony's suggestion for it, right? So he does try to get her to leave. It's like, right, you don't have to work for Robert. I'm trying to find a way out of this. But for him, it's like, no, like I'm not one of his. Because from her perspective, it's like, right, at least Robert trusts me. Obviously, there's no trust between her and Armand right now. So it's like, hey, he puts me in this position. Like, I'm, it's like, yeah, that was him in the past. He's a different person. But for Armand, it's like, no, the guy hasn't changed. I've seen how dangerous he is. Can't really confess that, like, hey, he made me murder someone yesterday. That probably enough to really kick the hornet's nest, but he doesn't even want to admit it out loud because he wants to, once again, insulate, just like Robert wants to insulate himself. Armand wants to insulate Nadia from everything, whether it is Robert or even whether it's from the FBI or just the FBI's investigation of Robert. So it puts them in this complicated spot if he can't really tell her too much. And I'm sure for her, once again, is that thing of, but you didn't trust me enough to tell me. It's like, I'm sure for him, it's also because whether he'll admit it or not, there might be some part of him that's like, I don't know how loyal you, like, I don't know if your loyalty's to me anymore. Like, oh, that sounds super possessive. More so like a loyalty to us, because it seems like more of your loyalty is to Robert, because it seems like those old feelings are sparking again. But she admits that, yeah, he's always been a little, like, even last episode, she was like, oh, you're kind of paranoid. Like, it seems like paranoia has always kind of been a bit of an issue, and he was probably always a little possessive himself, and now he's in, so I don't know. She's a little too, like, because I guess she's not willing to see Robert for kind of what he is currently, so I don't know. But Armand and her kind of make up. But he go later on and goes see Tony, and he says like I'm sorry. And she's like, no, I get it. Like, whatever their whole thing is, at the end of the day, she's still your wife. So they still haven't figured out their whole thing. But she did ask, like, do you love Tony? He's like, I don't know, but what I do know is I love you. It's like, he does love Tony. That's because the fact is he can't even say no was enough of an answer, I think, for Nadia. But it still feels like, hey, in this moment, you are choosing me. So that all worked out. Obviously, they put Tony left the key card or whatever, like on the bar or whatever, to make it seem like she left it or something, because she was getting, because I guess there would have been no time for her and Armand to meet up without it looking suspicious, and her giving it back to slip it back into like Nadia's purse or something like that. The problem they probably aren't accounting for, there might be like an electronic record of how many times that door's been opened and when. So it might be suspicious of, hey, did you come in at this time? Nadia's like, no, I wasn't here at that time. It's like, so I can, there's stuff like that. Plus, we have no idea if maybe there's like those deposit box kind of almost things of Roberts. We don't know if there's some like electronic like monitoring for those, being like, hey, anytime one of these is open, there's kind of a record or some electronic record or something. You never know. But I'm assuming every one of those has like not only just important stuff to him, but probably like important stuff like, what show was it that had that? Oh God, there's some show, I'm blanking on what it is off the top of my head. Maybe someone will know. It's something I definitely reviewed. I just can't think of what it was off the top of my head. But it's a show where someone kept evidence of the people that they were blackmailing as kind of souvenirs. And it's like, right, you need to get the evidence that they have against you. I just don't remember what it was off the top of my head. Let's get in, like, if you know what show I'm thinking of, it's definitely something I've reviewed, and maybe it's just something someone else has. It doesn't necessarily mean you've listened to my review, but maybe you've watched this show too. Like I said, I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. I'm assuming, like I said, my point was just, I'm assuming those are like maybe evidence he has, or like blackmail stuff he has for everyone. But Tony got the ledger, but she also came across something that she took a picture of, and later on when she's giving like the ledger stuff, and obviously Garrett sliding through stuff, she immediately takes her phone back, be like, hey, yeah, that was, I'll send it to you. I'm like, what was it? Whatever. I was like, whatever it is something you want to show Armand, but you don't want Garrett to see. So she ends up kind of thanking Garrett for everything that he's done for them. But ultimately, at the end, we find out it's a marriage certificate. There was like, oh, it's like June 11th, 2014, and the next thing was like June 14. And I was like, I don't know, I couldn't make out that word. I don't know if that was abandoned. So I don't know if it's like they were only married for like 3 days or something like that. Or whether that like marriage still technically counts. I'm like, oh, I don't know if it was like one of those like, because maybe the argument is like, oh, like Nadia and him never had that fully null and void. Maybe it's one of those marriages that is like kind of a shotgun wedding. Maybe court wise, it was a whole thing, but maybe there was never like anything big of it, so they never thought much of it. That she probably thought it was null and void, or maybe it never was ever officially null and void, and she didn't really think it counted. Like I said, I thought the word was kind of abandoned, but I don't know what that. There was an A word that was like the second one besides like I said, January 14th, and I just don't know. I don't remember what it was. I thought at the time it was abandoned, but maybe it was something else. So I don't know if that's, but like, it seems like the way Tony was talking about it, like they are still legally married. So I don't think there was any like annulment, at least on that paper. And the fact is that Robert was keeping that hidden and everything. So, and you know, for Tony, it's like, I'm sorry, but you know, to get back to my family, if Nadia needs to go down for us to take down Robert, then so be it. So Armand's also gonna have to figure this out, because it's like, right, do you tell Nadia what you found? Or, you know, because if you bring this up, she's gonna be like, how the hell do you know about that? Why do you know about that? And I mean, if she denies it, that's kind of a problem. But she's once again going to want to know how the hell you know about it. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, what that all means in the grand scheme of things. So, because the episode has something to do with spousal. I forgot the exact title for this episode, but it's kind of almost like that spousal thing of like, right, you're not legal, your spouses legally can't be forced to testify against each other. So you can be like, no, I refuse to, because we're married. I don't have to testify against her, and no one can stop you. You are legally not. Like, you can if you want to, but you're not legally bound to testify against your significant other if you're married. I don't know if common law stuff falls under that same category, because common law can be kind of seen as a form of marriage, but I think it probably has to be like definitively married for it to like count under the eyes of the law. But either way, so I thought it was going to be more so about Armand and Nadia, which I think maybe the titling in this episode could have been a play on that, because of they are married, but we'll find out now that Robert and Nadia are potentially married. So that's a whole thing. So kind of proving, I guess, that Nadia has a lot, or at least going to make Armand feel like, right, Nadia is even more invested in this than he initially thought she was. So it's like, right. Because it's like, right, you guys dated. I didn't know you were actually married. So that kind of changes things a little bit, you know, so. Because who knows, obviously they met sometime after, but we don't know how long after the fact, after everything between Robert and Nadia, how long of time span was between, I mean, who knows how long the relationship was, and how long in between that time was everything between Nadia and Armand. Because it does make a difference, because if they were together for a couple years, then that kind of changes things, because you go like, huh, you know, that amount of love doesn't just kind of disappear, because obviously those, once again, like I brought up earlier, the sparks are flying again, so it changes a lot for Armand, but we'll see how that plays out. The other interesting development, because ultimatums are up the wazoo in this episode, there's all of this, plus the JD thing. Like, obviously he's happy to have Fiona and the kids around, but you can tell Jazz is even more jazzed by the fact that she's seeing her parents get along, because her whole thing, like a couple episodes back, was like, yeah, she wants her mom and dad to get together, and especially because JD made it clear, like, oh, if Fiona had given him a choice, it's like, right, I would have married you, like, I loved you, and I still love you, so I almost halfway expected him to end up breaking up with his girlfriend just to, you know, for him and Fiona, but because Fee did tell JD like, obviously there's a lot more context to it, but it's still a thing of, he knows the important parts of, hey, she witnessed a crime, she works for some criminals. Then on top of that, the FBI is involved, so it's like, JD's like, I don't want my daughter around this. It's like, yeah, but Tony's a good mom, she's doing everything she can. It's like, all right, if Tony can figure this out, cool, fine. But if she can't, I want you and the kids to stay here because, and the thing is, when the time comes, can you leave Tony? And that's the complicated thing of it all. Regardless of like Tony's intentions and whatnot, she's brought a lot of danger to not only her life, but her family's life. Like, she's kind of created some very complicated circumstances. And once again, Fee's never really fully held it over Tony's head. She's thrown it in Tony's face a couple times here and there. And obviously, like, once again, the Garrett situation is like, yeah, he kind of screwed Fiona over last season. Once again, I always remember their friend, their coworker, that was not so lucky. She still got deported because of everything that Garrett did last season. But obviously, it's like, right, he did help out. Especially with the Chris situation. So I don't know. I think the fact that they're setting that up means like it is going to come down to that Fiona's going to have to choose between, like, yeah, she cares about Tony, but it's like, right, I mean, when would this ever end? Because Tony wants out of this, but it's like, once this world's got its teeth in you, there's no letting go. Especially, like, depending on where things between her and Armand go. Like, if they get any serious, like, she will always... Because Armand wants nothing to do with this world. He's going to back out, but it's like, he's already been ingrained in this world. He wants out. But once again, just like it's applicable to Tony, it's even more so applicable to him. He can't get out of this that easily, you know? So... I don't know if he could 100% just walk away. He plans to. He wanted him and Nadia to, so it can work out in that regard. But it's something Fiona's going to have to think long and hard about, and I think she is going to make that choice in the end. Especially because JD's probably going to throw that in Tony's face, like, anytime they confront him. He's like, right, whatever you're involved in, I get it. It wasn't your fault, but it's like, my daughter's safety is in, So once again, he doesn't have the broad context, but he has enough of the broad strokes to kind of get the picture to be like, yeah, so, and it's like, yeah, Tony, like, keeps dragging her family deeper and deeper and deeper into this. So it does beg the question, like, how long can Fiona continue to be around this before she finally has had enough, So, I'm assuming this season is going to be 10 episodes like last season, but I'm not 100% sure. So we might be nearing the end of the season already, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what the end result of all of this is going to be, but I thought that was kind of an interesting situation. So, I mean, this is the first time they probably able to, like, Fiona's probably been able to kind of fully breathe and relax without a whole bunch of stuff looming, because obviously Chris stuff is kind of settled for now, but there's always going to be the whole, like, Armand and maybe even I think the FBI is one thing, but, like, working with criminals, and I mean, it's like her only tie to that world is Armand, and there's also the thing of Fiona knows that regardless of it all, Tony has feelings for Armand, because she was even being like, you want to work with Armand? It's like, oh, you're doing this for Armand. It's like, no, I'm doing this for our family. So she has to always defend that decision. She has to be like, no, it's for our family. But it's like, there's also a little bit of it about Armand, but it is mainly about her family in this regard. But it is going to be that thing of like, right, it almost feels like just like Nadia accuses Armand of constantly choosing Tony. I'm sure Fiona's going to be on the other side of that side of things, being like, it feels like you're constantly choosing Armand over your family. It's like you can't keep doing both. You have to choose your family or Armand. I think Armand's in that same boat. So once again, it's just, this is the episode of ultimatums in that regard, and I think it's really all going to come down to it once again, maybe even in the season finale, but who knows what's fully going to go down next episode. It's definitely going to be interesting to see, because Robert was out of town dealing with some kind of business. What that fully entails, maybe we'll find out next episode. They do have his ledgers, trying to find out, they can get Armand to decipher it, figure out all the business he's connected to, and like kind of do like a mass sweep of like, yeah, all the people he's in business with, while also taking down Robert. Either way, like I said, I'm sure he's got a lot of ammunition on people he can use to his benefit. He's probably amassed a lot of blackmail. Once again, I still say the biggest one in his favor right now that we're at least aware of is Armand killing Maya. So, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.